Today I'd like to speak about mental tics, also known as PURO, also known as primarily obsessional OCD. So trigger warning, I will be very descriptive as to what's going on in my mind and thoughts. So if you feel you might be easily triggered, you might want to save this video for another day. So first of all, let's start with, OCD, the traditional way we perceive it. In my case, it can take, it will take the form of I need an extra 5 to 60 minutes to leave the house because I need to check and recheck the coffee machine, the stove, candles that have not been lit for 2 months, a door that I know I just locked 17 times, but I need to check it an 18th time if I need to. So everyone is familiar with that form of OCD where you have a thought and a compulsion and you act it out, right? So pure O, or primarily obsessional OCD, is basically intrusive and obsessive thought. And that can take the form of, say, for example, you're obsessing over a conversation you had. So you're having a conversation, that same conversation over and over again in your mind. You're mentally undoing things, mentally undoing thoughts that you just had. It's imagery and sensations that just suddenly pop up. And I need to point out that a lot of those images and thoughts are of sexual, violent, taboo, or otherwise socially inappropriate nature. So needless to say that having thoughts like this, it can be very distressing if you don't know what these thoughts are. So let's start very simply. In my case, for example, I'm cooking, chopping vegetables. I've got a big knife in my hand. Inevitably, I will think of the knife falling in my dog. We all know I don't want anything bad to happen to my dog. Sometimes I will have images of people hurt and suffering. I don't want that to happen either. Sometimes I've gone through the full mental math of my weight versus velocity from the 9th floor, and then redoing the math until I figure out that I would need to jump from the 14th floor in order for my weight and velocity to be effective. So that can be distressing. And sometimes I get flashes of weird sexual activities, things I have no desire for, things I would never do, things I'm not compelled to act out in any way, shape, or form. So these are very disturbing thoughts. And, I get disgusted with myself sometimes, and I question myself. There was a time I wasn't sure if I was a predator. I wasn't sure if I would hurt people, if I would hurt myself, if I would hurt creatures. I felt like a bad person. And I still do at times. Mentally doing the math of jumping off a building, if you roll into their, obsessions about, someone's current life situation that might be less than ideal, and you roll that into those mental thoughts, it doesn't take long for a person to start feeling like, it didn't take me long for me to start feeling like I deserved what was happening to me, and that suicidal ideation. It was very hard for me to define if it was ideation or an obsession. So, sometimes the line can get a little blurry if you don't know what's happening. So here's the good news. If you are disgusted with yourself, if you are questioning your thoughts, it means that your moral compass is not broken. If you know you're not going to act out those thoughts, even if you're afraid that you are, but it's not in your nature, you're not a bad person. So let's start there. You're not a bad person, okay? If you have those feelings about those thoughts, you're not a bad person. So question what's happening, but don't beat yourself up on it. It's easier said than done. I agree. I'm only scratching the surface. There's only so much I can say, in a monologue about PURO